If you're stuck in a loop and continue to experience the same energies over and over again, even if the faces change, the energy remains the same, or there's certain dynamics that keep surfing themselves in your life and you keep becoming aware of it, and you're wondering, how do I actually change it? What do I actually do to stop attracting controlling people? What do I do to stop attracting limitation or self-sabotage or scarcity or lack in my life? And in an interesting way, you may realize this has become familiar. This has become something that you very much know, but at the same time, you don't want to stay stuck in the familiar. Well, what you must begin doing is becoming aware of what that loop is. And recently in my own life, I've become aware of this resurging pattern that was happening over and over again over the last 5 to 7 years. And I feel like I'm finally at the brink of shedding that pattern. There are certain things I learned about this loop of energy I'm going to share with you over the last 5 to 7 years that will allow you to apply it towards any area of your life, to get the lesson and to create more freedom in your life, less emotional reaction in your life, and to finally start attracting the energy dynamics you prefer. Now, this energy I became aware of recently because there were 2 or 3 different situations in my life over the last couple months that reflected back a certain power dynamic. And when these things would happen, I would ask myself, why does this keep happening? Is this a familiar energy? And for myself, what I became aware of was there was this situation where when I was moving out of this house I was living at in Austin, there was this power dynamic where the person that owns the house was holding a very large security deposit that I put in when I moved there. I lived there for about a year. And when I moved out, I did everything I could to make the house as perfect as I could. However, I knew when I moved into the house that there was extremely high standards and almost a fear around, I hope whoever moves in doesn't mess anything up. And here I am, a single guy that is like working a lot, traveling a lot, home sometimes, but don't have any pets, don't have any kids or anything. Yet I could feel this energy like worrying and this energy of like control. Even this one closet I remember, it was like, do not go in this one closet where this electronic stuff was. And there was just this this energy of this fear, like don't do this, don't do that. I'm walking on eggshells. And where the pattern I became aware of was that there's this pattern specifically around women that I would feel like I'm walking around eggshells around. So here I am living in this house, and think of the power dynamic of a tenant to landlord dynamic, a power of authority. And there was this power dynamic of me feeling like I'm walking on eggshells, even though I'm successful and I have the abundance and higher level of self-worth, feeling like I'm walking on eggshells. Well, what happened is living in that house, I then moved out and moved to Los Angeles, and then realized that everything that I thought I did, the thousands of dollars I spent to get the house like perfectly back to where it was, there were certain things that were focused on where it was like certain things felt unfair. For example, one of them was outside. When it would freeze in Austin, I had to put these plants, I had to put these things over the plants so they didn't freeze. I did exactly what the landlord asked me to do. However, one of the agave plants died. Don't believe it was because it froze because Austin is so cold and I didn't put the blanket over it, but the agave plant died. Well, guess how much that agave plant costs to fix, to replace? $2,000 to $3,000 to replace one agave plant when there is a weekly person that comes to the house to do the landscaping. And in my mind, I'm traveling a lot. I figured the landscaper would have noticed that an agave plant was dying and would have done something about it. However, that wasn't the case. So out of a large security deposit, things get eaten away because I wasn't aware of just how focused or how neurotic this was going to be. Now, what I realized through this process, though, is it ended up being this thing where I got this long email of all of these things that were wrong, and I'm like, how is this? I couldn't understand the level of expectation and detail that was focused on it. And there was an emotional reaction. It was like, I did something wrong. Now I've got to deal with all of this long list of things now that I'm living in Los Angeles before, as I moved out of this house. And what I ended up doing is passing it off to someone that on my team, my assistant, to deal with it. And I realized I didn't have to be so emotionally reactive. I know that sounds easy because I can pass it off to somebody. I have the resources to do that just with my lifestyle and the business that I've created. But I realized I didn't have to, there was still an emotional reaction. This isn't fair. This is happening. And what I recognized was that there was an energy pattern there. I asked myself the question, is this familiar to childhood? Is this familiar energy? Is there a story or a belief that is on autopilot that is keeping this energy in my life? Because ironically enough, 4 or 5 years ago when I first started to become successful on YouTube, I also had a dynamic in the same power dynamic with the tenant to landlord, where a guy this time it was a guy I was renting from in that of Las Vegas. The same type of energy. We're very high standards and kind of neurotic in certain ways. Like a pipe broke on the pool in the backyard and there was a $2,000 water bill. Normally the water bill is $80, $2,000. I bring this up to the landlord and he's like, well, I'm going to sell the house in 4 or 5 months, so just let it be. I'm like, I'm not paying $2,000 a month for water for 4 or 5 more months because you don't want to fix it because you want to sell the house. And even if you were going to sell the house, what is the story behind that? Like what is the energy that is keeping that there? And me, I wasn't just going to let that happen, so I got him to fix the pipe. But similar story, right? Things aren't fair. And when I first moved into the house too, in Vegas, I moved in, went to use the oven, and the oven didn't work within a week of moving in. And he was going to charge me like $500 to fix the oven. And I'm like, it's not how it works. I don't own the house, but it's like there's this unfair energy, this power dynamic where things aren't fair. But what I eventually realized though is it wasn't personal. It's not personal. Like right now, as I make this video, I'm looking at my car and there is a guy that is putting a ticket on my car, like right now as I record this. Because there is street cleaning here in that of Los Angeles. And every week at 10 o'clock, there's this, they do street cleaning. And he's doing it right now, but it's not personal. What I realized too is the $50, the $75 ticket, it's not worth the energy for me to go move my car somewhere else to move it back. It's not personal. This is one of the breakthroughs, by the way. It's not personal. It's just a dynamic. What's personal is the unprocessed energy from the past. It's the unprocessed energy of the story behind it. So the story for me was this guy's not fair, this power dynamic's not fair, this person I'm walking on eggshells with this house I moved out of at Austin, this is not fair. But what I realized through working with this person, I had my assistant deal with it with this person in Austin. Here's what I realized. From my perspective, things aren't fair, high standards, I'm walking on eggshells. You want to know what else I realized? This person was getting ready to get the house ready for the next tenant moving in. So when all of this stuff came up of everything that wasn't wrong, what I realized is she's a perfectionist. When I was realizing she's a perfectionist, she doesn't want the house to be not perfect for the tenants. So it's not so much that it's this personal thing that she is, it's not fair and there's this power dynamic at place and I just did things wrong. It's more so she's a perfectionist and wants the house to look perfect for the new tenants that move in. So what I realized there is it's not as personal as I thought. Now, even more recently, take this a step further, and I'm not going to go into the complete details to every level of this, but there was something in my business that I had to deal with recently that had to do with a certain book that I used to talk about back in the day. Used to make a lot of videos, and I used to make a lot of content talking about a specific book. And what happened is I became aware that the organization did not want me talking about this book. And once again, I have good intentions. I moved into this house as a single guy. I had good intentions of keeping the house clean. I did everything I could to keep the house where it was supposed to be, but it wasn't good enough. With the book, I'm sharing this book, recommending thousands of people buy this book. I have good intentions, yet there are people that represent this book that do not want me talking about the book. This doesn't feel fair. And funny enough, usually I realized it was a woman that represented the organization or the woman that even owned this house. It's a woman. So I asked myself the question, is there some familiarized pattern, loop, belief, and story around woman and power dynamic that I can become aware of to heal this energy and to let it go? And what I realized is every single time something would happen, even up till a week ago when this happened in my business, I realized there was less and less emotional reaction, more and more observation of trusting that this is just an echo from the past because I wasn't aware of the energy. And as I become aware of it, I realize I still take action. There's still certain things I had to do to reorganize things. I still had to get my assistant to help, manage like getting the house back up to the exact standards and the exact blueprint for this, lady in Austin. But what I realized is I don't have to be emotionally swayed. Whereas when I was a kid, I was emotionally affected, emotionally reactive. If I want to clear out that energy in my field and I want to create a certain level of a new way of relating, then what I can begin doing is, one, realizing that you don't have to take it personal. You can observe what is happening, and you can recognize that the degree of change is not whether the external reality changes. The degree of change is whether the external reality remains the same, but your response has changed. And that's something to look at here, because the cool thing is that eventually reality shifts because you've learned the lesson. You're not emotionally being dictated. You're becoming aware of the shadow and the subconscious belief that's under the surface. And the subconscious belief for me has always been around authority. One of the reasons I create a strong level of control in my business and my life is because I don't trust authority. And one of the reasons I don't trust authority is because growing up, there was authority dynamic at play that wasn't fair. So my belief about reality is that life's not fair. And when I'm in an authority dynamic and relationship, that's where it comes up. So interestingly enough, where in my life is that authority dynamic? Back in the day, by the way, I worked a 9-to-5 job selling women's shoes. How do you think my bosses that I attracted in my life were? Things weren't fair. Corporate politics. That was every job I had was like that, because that was the power dynamic when I was a kid. That was the loop I was in. Now I'm an adult. The only places there's really a power dynamic in my life now are maybe with the government and taxes, which, by the way, is not fair. Or maybe power dynamic of this tenant and landlord dynamic. Well, if I want to shed the pattern, I have to have a new response, a new level of awareness. And what I started to do as well is I started to take this to the quantum realm. Let's go a little more esoteric here. One thing I started to realize is, was there times in my past where things were fair? Were there times in the past where I was protected? Like if a certain part of my past I felt wasn't protected, things weren't fair? Was there information from my past where I was protected and things were fair? And I realized there were. It's just that in the present moment right now, if there's certain energy dynamics that are active, I look to my past and it reaffirms everything I believe to be true. When in fact, there's also the other aspect. There were times in the past I could see that everything I went through as a kid, I was in a certain way, I could say that when I was 17 years old, my dad divorced my ex-stepmom. There were certain variables in that situation that allowed that to happen. And at least from 17 onwards, I had all this freedom. Oh, look, I was protected. Oh, look, that's when I could start to trust. I could see that as the universe helping me to move in that direction for having that freedom. I can start to rewire my beliefs in the present moment, which then will rewire the energy patterns and the loops I'm in. I'll no longer be in a loop. You're only in a loop if you believe you're a victim to the loop and you believe the loop is the way reality works. When you become aware of the loop, you can then choose something new. And what I've become aware of in my life is that I can choose a new response, which means I don't have to be so emotionally dictated and so emotionally thrown around like a leaf in the wind. I can take my power back. And my power back means I'm going to choose my emotional response to this high expectation lady. I'm going to choose my emotional response to this thing in my business of talking about this old book, and I'm going to replay my power back. You know what I realized? One, I'm an awesome tenant living in houses and stuff. Like I'm very easy to deal with in the sense that I'm focused on my business. I travel a lot. Like I kind of regain my sense of power there. also a successful, not that I need the ego grandiosity, I'm a successful business guy and I don't have to look down, but I'm creating that power dynamic by feeling like I'm walking on eggshells. It's something that's created through projection. I don't have to create that energy. Instead, I can realize that there isn't this playing field of projecting authority and someone else's power outside of myself. I realize that I must embody the authority inside myself. I must take that power back, not emotionally be swayed and not be given away that energy in that way. And what I did with this recent thing, by the way, with my business, that was like this thing I'm not going to go into, but what I did is I wrote a long letter that basically expressed how I felt about the situation, and I demanded that certain things would happen. And as I did that, I sent this letter out, and within an hour, everything shifted back to not needing to be in fear. Because I expressed myself and I reclaimed my power. I believe we get certain lessons and situations in our life, as long as we are unconscious of them, as long as we are replaying similar familiar dynamics, we stay in them. If I continue to walk around authority figure, which by the way is only authority because I'm choosing to see them as authority, and instead of projecting onto them, things aren't fair and I need to walk on eggshells, if I choose not to walk on eggshells, I choose to be in my power, I choose to surrender to the outcome, to surrender to the unknown, and to be in my power, then what happens is I begin to pass the test. What happens is then there is less me giving away my power, me giving away my energy, and there is more so me being in my own preferred state of consciousness and state of being. So I believe I am passing the test and I am no longer in this loop of energy. One, because my energy dynamic has changed. I am not responding, reacting in a leaf in the wind. I'm more neutral about it. But next, I'm aware of the beliefs I'm projecting onto the story. Could it be possible that I am wrong about this? That it's not personal? Just like the ticket on the car, just like the lady that's being super neurotic about how the house looks and, hoarding the money of a big, large security deposit. Could it be possible that there's another perspective here? That maybe this person's a perfectionist. It's not personal towards me. There's a perfectionist and it just is what it is. And also, that's a replayed energy of a year ago when I first moved into the house. So it's an echo of that energy. It's not representative of what's happening right now. Just like this thing also in my business that happened, it was a reflection of when I was first getting my business created in 2017-18. That's when this stuff kind of came back around for me to look at. And I know I've changed because my response has changed. I'm choosing to be in my power. I'm not giving it away. I'm not in that unconscious mind of reacting like a leaf in the wind. Now, if you want to learn, by the way, step by step, how to get more into your own frame of reality, you want to learn how to elevate your vibration to become aware of these shadow beliefs that are underneath the surface, I have a free course that's literally a $1,000 course for free called High Vibe 101. Has breath work in it, meditations, belief work for becoming aware of these subconscious beliefs, healing the inner child dynamic, completely transforming your life when you get to apply this kind of work. It is completely free. I'll go ahead and link it in the description box below. You can join High Vibe 101 in the free group called High Vibe Tribe. I'll also soon be going live every Monday for meditations in there, and you can join those as well. But this is a way for you to really create inside-out transformation for yourself and understanding that power dynamic that you may be infusing into reality. Now, if you want to learn more, I go a little bit deeper into some of this story and how you can really surrender. I have a video from a live that I did recently on Instagram. It is one of my favorite lives that I've done, and it's about a 30 or 40 minute video. But if you want to go deeper on surrender, how you can actually surrender to let go and allow yourself to completely experience a new reality of freedom, then check out this video next right here. Would you rather be right or would you rather be free? Sometimes we can be right about reality,